John in Chicago.
Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going?
Pretty good.
Great. Thanks for waiting.
Cool. Yeah, interesting topic on the fables and folklore.
Thank you.
Yeah, I get where you're going with that, but I guess I would have to say as a Christian, you have to put each so-called miracle into context and examine the evidence individually and then come to a conclusion. But as a Christian, I believe that the biggest miracle already occurred, which is the creation of life in the universe. Okay. So anything after that would just really be arbitrary.
So do you believe in the giant serpent thing?
Or do you think
like I said, it has to be examined in context. I mean, if dinosaurs really did roam with men at one point in the past, then I guess that would be a plausible interpretation in their time. We might not understand their rhetoric at that time, and they probably wouldn't understand ours today, so it has to be put in a context.
So you think the stories in this book may well be credible?
At least some of them.
In my view, yes. But like I said, each one would have to be examined.
Got your answer.
All right.
As far as Genesis is concerned, if that's true, then any other miracle that God chooses to do, I guess, would be possible. But I would say that atheists, strong atheists, have beliefs in miracles as well. So I think it's just a matter of interpreting.
What do you mean by miracle?
Yeah.
Well, in my view, life creating itself would be a miracle.
Why?
Because of the immense improbability of it doing so naturally.
Why do you think that?
Well, DNA is very complicated, and so is the cell.
Okay. A lot of complicated things happen in the world. But, I mean, by miracle, you mean... Actually, it's kind of weird to refer to life occurring naturally as a miracle, since I would think a miracle by definition is something that didn't happen naturally. So I'm going to have to ask again, what do you mean by miracle?
Do you believe that something can come from nothing?
I don't know.
Okay. So you're agnostic about the Big Bang.
You didn't answer what did you mean by miracle?
Well, what do you mean by miracle? Is something that God has to do or supernatural?
So I think something that only God or a supernatural thing could have caused to happen, is what you're saying.
Right. I believe that life cannot create itself here on Earth naturally. Therefore, life has to come from a supernatural source.
Okay, and where does this supernatural source come from?
Outside of nature.
And how do you know that exists?
Well, you can't know that exists. That's just an inference to the best explanation. I ask myself, if I find digital code, if I go to Mars and find digital code on Mars, do I assume that the elements did it or a digital code programmer did it?
What kind of digital code? I mean, are we talking about a CD-ROM on Mars or something?
No, I'm talking about the digital code, like the digital code in DNA.
So if you found DNA on Mars, you would assume God put it there?
No, I said if I went to Mars and I found a digital language code in any form that I find it, whether it's on a ROM or in a molecule, I think the instance to the best explanation for digital code is a mind, not nature.
Well, I don't necessarily know that that's a fair comparison, because on Mars there's not a lot of raw materials for this thing to happen. A better comparison would be, could you find an interesting shape in the sand on Mars? Because Mars has a lot of sand, and it turns out that there are a lot of interesting shapes that are formed in the sand on Mars. So some of them, if you look up like Martian face, people think that there's a shape of a face on Mars.
Do you think patterns? Those are prescriptive information.
Well,
right,
so
but that's
DNA.
What DNA is, just a very complicated pattern.
No, it's a prescriptive code, information code, which
No, we call it an information code because that's a metaphor for things that we're familiar with. But basically, what DNA is just chemicals doing their thing.
Yeah, if you think about this table, the table is a prescriptive code for hold things up.
No,
don't let it down. So if you put it on there, it just does its thing naturally. There's no angel that reminds it.
Table?
Sure. DNA is more complex.
It's more complex.
And I mean, part of what makes
smaller.
DNA interesting is that it's a replicator. But other than that, I mean, attributing what? A replicator of itself.
And what is it though? That's not a description of DNA. DNA is a digital language code.
No, I mean what you're saying is, just interesting metaphors that people have come up with to describe DNA. What DNA actually is a bunch of chemicals in a particular pattern that's capable of replicating itself.
Are you familiar
That's
with
basically
who
what it
Craig
is.
Venter is?
What?
Are you familiar with who Craig Venter is?
Craig Venter.
No.
Yes.
No, not personally.
Okay, Craig Venter is probably one of the most renowned geneticists, and he disagrees with what you say.
One thing I notice is that whenever creationists cite somebody, I mean, it's interesting that the most renowned geneticist is somebody that a lot of people haven't heard of.
Well,
I mean, you can do without the superlatives.
So you haven't heard of Craig Venter?
I might be able to jog my memory if I looked him up, but right now his name's not coming to mind. But I'm not a geneticist.
The thing that's more interesting or important or anything than a single geneticist or a single authority would be something like a textbook. So if you were to say to me, hey, are you familiar with this textbook or this research paper, research book, which is a collaborative effort where people have come together and said, yeah, this is the best to our knowledge of how it works.
But it is your claim, though, correct, that DNA is not information, it's just chemical reactions?
No, I didn't say it's not information.
Are you saying the table is not conveying information? This table is currently conveying a height information and a weight information, and it is hard-coded into the table.
It's designed to hold things up. It's not designed, however, to send or receive information and build other things such as the cell.
Okay. So
well, the waves are. I mean, do you waves send and receive?
Like ocean waves?
Ocean waves, yeah. Do you think that? Would you call ocean waves coded information?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
When you find the binary code on your computer encoded information?
Yeah, but I mean that is just a function of how we've created it and how we choose to read and write to it.
Right. We had to sequence information into a coded form to convey a message to the processor.
But when you said a code on Mars, what did you mean exactly? Because you didn't like the DNA idea, and you didn't mean literally DNA. Or
digital code.
Like what?
DNA.
Like what are you imagining finding on Mars?
If you
because if you're just talking about more DNA, then you're begging the question.
What was that?
If you're just talking about finding more DNA, then you're begging the question by assuming that the DNA was designed in some way.
And you already shot down faces.
No, I said digital code. If we found
I don't know what you mean by that.
Any other realm of experience, you
would tell me, give me, yeah.
When you're just repeating digital code, it sounds to us like you are just repeating something. Like some talking points, and this is not an original idea. So what we're trying to ask you right now is, what does that mean to you, and why do you find this a compelling argument, and why should we find it compelling?
Right, like paint a picture for me. We go to Mars and we find what? Like we're walking. We got astronauts walking on Mars, and they pick up a.
Let's say they pick up a molecule.
There's lots of molecules on Mars,
program, or a book.
They pick up a book.
They pick up a book.
That would look like a human artifact, and so, yeah, they would probably expect that there have been people there.
A book is a digital language code.
It is? How?
It is a
molecule?
code from a sender to a receiver. You understand that?
No. How does that work?
Well, I just like that in this universe, God has decided in his infinite wisdom to put a book on Mars, and he's like, well, that's it. Job done.
Is it a radio? Is it sending radio waves with a language in it?
Book's fine. A book is a
fine
thing.
So we found a book.
We find a book.
That's what you had in mind?
Something like
that.
Yes,
a book would be considered a language code, yes.
Okay,
so that would
I find
be a miracle.
Book, and I'd look at it, and I'd say, looks like somebody went to Mars without telling us.
Right. You would conclude an intelligence wrote the book.
Right, because it's similar to human artifacts. I mean, if the book is written in English or something, it reminds me of stuff that people we know exist have produced before.
With intelligent minds, right?
Well, specifically people.
Right, who have intelligent minds.
Yes, they have intelligent minds.
Yeah.
I wouldn't conclude that it was a god, though.
Which is a book of instructions on how to make you.
Okay, I can imagine somebody writing that book.
Wow, that would be either crazy long or crazy short.
Right, DNA is extremely long.
Right.
Right. So what's your problem with that?
I don't have a problem with that. Now what?
It's a thing that hasn't happened.
I don't conclude there's a God, though. Yeah, and it hasn't happened.
So.
What's that?
So, I mean, you've done a great job conveying what a miracle could look like, but this is not a thing that happened.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you were asserting that it happened. You didn't know how DNA got here.
What?
I said it's just your assertion that it happens already. You have not observed DNA coming into existence. You don't know how DNA got here.
Yes, I have.
So to believe that it came about naturally.
I watched my son being born.
Than somebody creating it. Am I wrong?
That nobody sat there and watched it happen?
I mean, no, nobody watched the first DNA form because as far as we know, to watch is a function of an intelligent mind, which is the end result of a whole bunch of evolution that happened after DNA got here. There's no evidence that there's some nebulous, invisible intelligence floating around that doesn't have DNA as a medium, because the only intelligence that we're familiar with in the universe, the only direct experience that we've had with intelligent minds is that which comes from meat brains which evolved. Do you have a counterexample?
That is the inference to the best explanation. We have intelligent brains that can decipher whether something is intelligent.
So you're assuming.
No. Hold on, you both are assuming that I wasn't there and that I didn't watch it happen.
Okay, were you there?
Yes.
Oh, she was there.
I saw it happen.
Wow. Can I have your autograph?
Sure thing.
Yeah, you can come on over to Austin.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. You believe that she was there to see DNA, but you won't believe water turned wine?
I can't prove she wasn't there, and that seems to be just as good as your claim.
Well, the thing is, I didn't start off back then. I did do some time travel. So
you did.
There was a little bit of cheating. I mean, do you believe me?
I don't, but if you prove it to me, sure, I'll think about it.
Well, hold on. I mean, why should I have to prove it to you? I'm telling it to you now, and you weren't there to see me not do it.
Right. So I have to take it on faith, right?
Well, you're okay with taking the giant snake on faith.
I have a reason, though.
What reason?
What's the reason? Because you can't think of anything better?
No, because I believe that everything is designed according to laws, and that whoever designed the laws can break them if he chooses.
Okay, well, you've got no evidence of that.
And he broke them with me. He let me do it.
He let you do it.
Have you asked? He's very forgiving.
What was that? So you said that you're a time-traveling DNA creator.
Why don't you ask God if she did that or not?
Yeah. Or if he'll let you do it. Have you ever asked him to let you time travel? I don't think
maybe
so.
he will.
I don't think
I mean, what kind of argument is that? I mean, it seems like you guys are doing a lot of running.
I don't think he's ever asked God to let him time travel.
Okay. Well,
but we should move on.
Yeah, we should. Thanks for calling. You can call back. Bye, John.
Yeah.